Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Teaching Tax Flow podcast, episode 154 today. We are revving up for a very interesting topic. You'll see what I'm talking about here in a moment as we look at the new automobile interest deductions. So before we do that, as always, let's take a brief moment and thank our episode sponsor.
This episode is sponsored by Wealth Builders Mortgage Group, powered by Movement Mortgage, one of the top mortgage teams in the nation and a powerhouse in the real estate investing world. With over $1.1 billion in closed mortgage volume and more than 3,000 investor deals under their belt, they don't just talk the talk, they walk it. Their team specializes in helping short-term and long-term rental investors scale smart with customized lending strategies. They offer all STR loan products, including second home, investment, non-QM, bank statement, asset-based, and HELOCs. They also offer all primary home loan products too. Whether you're just starting out or expanding an existing portfolio, their unique Path of 10 strategy is designed to help you move from a 9-to-5 job to financial independence. If you're looking for a lending partner who truly understands the investor mindset, visit wealthbuildersmortgagegroup.com and start building your roadmap today.
Hey, everybody, hopefully my corny little intro there did not turn you off about revving up for this wonderful topic. So obviously you heard it, what we're going to talk about here. Being a car guy, I absolutely love this. I'd love to see how this is actually going to tie into everything that we're talking about here at Teaching Tax Flow, especially on the podcast. But the good thing about this one is I didn't have to bring a guest. I brought my co-host, Chris Picciurro. How's it going, brother? Let's talk about this.
It's going great. I know we're both from the Motor City. Now, you're
That's
more
true.
of a car guy than I am. I'm really excited that you're excited about this, and it's something. A lot of times when tax laws are getting bantied about in the tax professional world, we could see things coming. But gosh, this one I didn't see coming. Not that it came out of nowhere. It was just, wow, okay. And this tax law change was part of our friend OB3, or the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. And what we always say that tax laws are written to encourage and discourage certain behavior. So automobile loan interest deduction. So shocking, I couldn't get it out of my mouth. There's now a deduction on a personal tax return for qualified automobile loan interest. And obviously, this is to the benefit indirectly of automobile manufacturers. And when we dive into what the qualifications are, I think you could read through this bill and understand one of the laws of teaching tax flow. Like I just said, the tax agencies are your involuntary business partner. So laws are written to encourage and discourage certain social, economic behavior. And this is one of them. So part of that One Big Beautiful Bill Act, you might be able to take an interest deduction for an automobile that you've purchased on your tax return. And here's the interesting thing, John. It's not even an itemized deduction. Remember, itemized deductions are reported on Schedule A, and you have to have all of your itemized deductions exceed the standard deduction for them to really matter. This is what we call an above-the-line deduction, meaning it is coming off of your tax bill before your adjusted gross income is fully calculated. So
Honestly, this news
cool.
I think is going to impact a lot of people. I think the awareness of it is probably going to be the biggest challenge, right? Like a lot of people don't know that. And I mean, if you think about it too, right? Like again, this comes from somebody who's a car guy. I think I trigger every single automotive related Facebook ad on the planet, right? I kind of feel like the low interest rates on vehicles have kind of taken a little bit of a die. You don't see them as much. I know they're still there, but I mean, just think about that offset, right? I mean, and I would love to dive into this just a little bit. I know there's some good example case studies. Maybe we can go through and defining this a little bit, but I'm glad that you did mention that regarding the difference, the above and below the line too, because that's a huge thing. And we talked about that, just last week.
Yes, above and below the line, and you definitely want to be above the line. So that reduces your AGI. So let's talk about the deduction itself. The limit is going to be $10,000 of qualified auto loan interest deduction per year. Now, it has to be linked to a qualified vehicle. So what does that mean? It has to be a new vehicle, meaning it's the first use begins with the taxpayer. It has to be a vehicle that was final assembly within the United States. The gross vehicle weight rating has to be under 14,000 pounds. So we're not talking about, most vehicles are under 14,000 pounds, and we're not talking about these big vehicles. It has to be personal use only. So it cannot be a business vehicle. Now so there's no like double dipping, John. Like if you buy a business vehicle and you take advantage of bonus depreciation or Section 179, this is different. This is for individuals. So this is for people. We talk all the time that there are a ton of deductions for business owners and rental property owners, but for people that are primarily employees or receive a W-2, there are a ton of deductions. This is one of them. And it has to be secured by an auto loan, not a lease. So leased vehicles are not eligible for this deduction. So which vehicles are not eligible? Used vehicles, leased vehicles, business use vehicles, fleet vehicles, and then any vehicle assembled
We know what you
outside
meant.
of the US of A.
And a lot of that makes sense. I mean, and I'm glad you mentioned that too. It kind of alleviates the double dipping opportunity. It's not like I'm just, and I'm going to leave every analogy I can come up with out of it because it's just going to come out bad. I'm going to roll this week though. I think I'm on some really good, bad dad jokes, but I'll leave them out. And it's interesting that they put 14,000 pounds in there for a personal vehicle, that the gross vehicle weight, because I mean, I got some friends that drive pretty large vehicles and we're nowhere near 14,000 pounds. So I would love to see what guys driving around a 13,000 pound gross vehicle for personal use would be interesting. So I wonder if so what if somebody has a vehicle? This is a dumb question. And you might just tell me to shut up and leave in the can. Would it make sense? Or do you think some people they might start selling, say they're in their business. Would they sell themselves their vehicle? Could that in a sense be a double, think about if you're a C Corp or
No,
something like that. Okay.
no,
I'm
because
just
remember,
throwing dumb ones out there.
yeah, that was pretty dumb, but we appreciate. I
I'll
don't
take
think I've
it.
ever said your question was dumb. I'm usually kinder, but I
I'll take
appreciate that.
Hey.
No, because remember, it's got to be but actually, it's not a terrible question because that might be people are always looking for creative ways to do things.
And
You
that's what I'm
can't
thinking
sell
about. How
yourself
can you skirt
something.
around this? But
That doesn't because remember, it has to be a new vehicle.
oh, that's right.
Or it
I
can't
missed
be a
that
used
one.
vehicle.
You're right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's be a
So
new
basically,
vehicle.
this is coming from a direct from the manufacturer's floor plan. Well, it's not really the manufacturer's floor plan, but that's a whole other thing. You're buying a new vehicle assembled in the States, final assembly in the States, and secured by loan. Makes sense.
Right.
Okay.
Now, what are the loan requirements? The loan requirement must be a secured loan issued after December 31st, 2024. So we're talking about 2025 vehicles. And you are right. Almost every vehicle is under 14,000 pounds gross vehicle weight rating, most personal use vehicles. But they had to put something in there, right? Maybe someone's trying to drive a tank around as a
So pretty
personal
much
vehicle.
by that, and I mean, I don't think we know the answer to this unless we've really read into it, right? So we're just going to say it. We probably don't have a response, but I imagine by them stating that it needs to be a secured loan to that vehicle, I'm sure it has to be a vehicle loan. It's not like you can, I got a HELOC and I'm going to go buy a vehicle with it and I'm going to write off that interest rate. They're probably trying to avoid that. But again, we'd have to look into it. I'm sure.
Correct. Now, if you have a HELOC, and you use it for home equity improvements and stuff, yeah, then it's deductible. But
yes, not to go buy a Ferrari without telling your wife you're buying a Ferrari and promising you're going to build the addition on the house.
Well, right, and then here it's now that's a good segue because there are phase out thresholds. So
take it.
Your deduction. So this deduction is eligible, but it phases out, meaning if you go over a certain income threshold, you start to lose the full deduction. Those phase outs start for married filing joint at $200,000. So I would imagine not too many people are buying Ferraris if they don't make at least $200,000 a year. And if they do, They're going to be in the second category of single phase out of $100,000 pretty damn soon. Oh, I just
And
said
there's
a
a
bad
third
word.
category of just being a financial idiot. But,
But yeah, so single
good.
and head of household, if you have over $100,000 of adjusted gross income or modified adjusted gross income, then you don't lose the deduction, but it begins to phase out. $200,000 for married filing jointly. So that's kind of the tricky part of, are you going to even be eligible for this based on income? Now, phase outs can be very, very confusing. So one of the things that we've really taken a lot of feedback, positive feedback within our Defeating Taxes private Facebook group. Shameless plug. Just go to defeatingtaxes.com to join. Thanks. Use more examples. So we actually have a few case studies for that we're going to talk about on this podcast episode. Now, what's the phase out formula? The deduction, remember, it maxes at $10,000, is reduced by $200 for every $1,000 over the threshold. So if you're at anything over $200,000 married joint, every $1,000 you're over, you lose a deduction of $200. Now, this is why it's so important. Remember, your number one KPI, key performance indicator in tax planning and strategy, is your marginal tax rate, not your tax bracket. Because your tax bracket's not going to calculate these type of phase outs properly, but a marginal tax rate will. We're going to run through three. We're going to run through three case studies, Johnny T.
And here's a question for you, semi-related to this too. So, I feel like we've been mentioning and bringing up the term phase out a lot more in the past 6-8 months than we did previously. Do you find that, I mean, you've been practicing for a couple decades now, and then some.
Seems like a long time when you say it that way.
Hey, I didn't say you've been practicing forever. I just said for a long
How about
time. That just makes
a
you
little over a
very
score? A
There
little
we
over
go.
a score,
Okay.
20 years.
I believe so. 4 and 70. Yeah. Okay. Are phase outs relatively new in the tax dictionary? We should say. I mean, have they always been so prevalent, say 10, 15 years ago, or is it kind of a newer thing?
I mean, I think there's more awareness of phase outs. I feel like there are more of them. And what's interesting is, remember, tax laws are written encouraging discouraging behavior. What do phase outs tell us? Phase outs tell us what the federal government feels is a high amount of income. Because if you're over $100,000 and you're single or head of household, basically they're saying you don't get this full deduction. We feel like you don't need it. Doesn't mean you don't deserve it, but you don't need it at your income level.
And I always think about this too. If anybody else that's listening, this kind of feels the same way as, in my mind, the crazy world of everything that's going on up there. I picture, quote unquote, filing, air quotes, filing taxes back, the 50s, 40s, long time ago, before we were around. In my mind, I almost see that as like Pleasantville, right? Like, ooh, form, check, 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 attach something, staple it, send it off, right? Like now there's so many things, like we mentioned, phase outs and all the stuff, different stuff. It's like tax planning, which we always talk about, is really, that's like the beacon of everything. Like if you ever want to have control and, sticking it to the, whatever, you come up with your own term, out there with having to shell out so much, like get into it. And we got tons of content on that. So if anybody's interested in that, check that out. Just Google tax planning, teaching taxable. You find a million things.
And the thing to consider about phase outs is these are federal phase outs. States have different conformity. Again, not to keep plugging Defeating Taxes, but we've been talking about that in our private Facebook group a little bit. However, the phase out, think about $100,000 for a single or head of household person, they start getting phased out of this deduction. Okay. The deduction could be significant. Now, if you make $100,000, should you be paying $20,000 a year of automobile interest? Probably not, but you never know. That's modified adjusted gross income. What if you make $200,000, but it's all rental income and you get a bunch of depreciation deduction? Here's another thought, John. $100,000 in rural Mississippi of income, or a small town, goes a lot, or college town, let's say, goes a lot farther than Silicon Valley. Right. So it's someone could be barely making it in one place and living in a completely different lifestyle in the other. So just a thought.
And we should do a whole other episode on tax planning and residency planning and have it sponsored by a real estate agency. That's nationwide. We'll move
That's
everybody
fine. Work
from
on that.
we'll
We
move
got-
everybody from California over to the East.
That sounds like a good
I
plan.
digress.
So let's look at it. We're going to do 3 case studies. Let's first talk about Emma. She's single, seemingly looking to mingle. She's got a good job. Makes $90,000 of income. So her modified adjusted gross income is $90,000. She bought a new vehicle. It's a qualified vehicle, so it was assembled in the U.S. And the final assembly was in the U.S. So could a vehicle maybe not be first? Doesn't mean every part has to be from the U.S. Final assemblies in the U.S. Personal use, new vehicle. She had $2,800 worth of vehicle interest. Now, interesting thought. Are these companies now, these lenders, are they going to report this? So we're going to keep our eyes out there for new tax forms. Or is this going to be, because the IRS doesn't want everyone to just claim this interest deduction without it getting reported to them. Like mortgage interest is reported, to the IRS.
Yeah.
So
That's a
anyway,
good point.
so deduction at $2,800, she's under the $100,000 limit. The $2,800 of interest paid is under the $10,000 maximum deduction. Emma is happy with her new vehicle. She's hot to trot on the town as she enters the dating scene, and she drives around in confidence, knowing that she got a $2,800 deduction.
As long as her tax professional knows about this. So,
Exactly, yes. Now, we've got Marcus. Marcus is a head of household. So head of household means he's single. However, he does have qualified dependent. He's modified adjusted gross income is $95,000, and he paid $3,500 worth of interest. So let's think about this. Head of household, okay? Magi, acronym. John, you've been killing it on those. Thank you. Yes, you've been killing it on that. But the Magi is our acronym for tax, in the tax world. But he'll get the under 100,000 interest paid, 3,500 fully deductible. Marcus is happy. Final case study, Olivia. Olivia is also single. Olivia is doing well for herself. She's making $140,000, but Olivia wants one of those nice whips. So she has $10,800 worth of mortgage interest paid. Ooh. She did buy U.S.-made luxury vehicle, so the vehicle actually qualifies. But let's talk about 2 things with Olivia. First of all, hey girl, she's single, making 140 grand. I don't know about allocating that many resources to a vehicle, but we ain't her financial advisor. We encourage Olivia to jump into the Defeating Taxes private Facebook group, though. Anyway, her modified adjusted gross income is 140, so she's over that $100,000 threshold, and the interest is $10,800, which is over the $10,000 limit. So we've got a couple things going on. Let's first talk about the maximum deduction. The maximum deduction is going to be $10,000. So the fact that she paid $10,800 is that $800, the additional $800 is not going to be deductible at all. Her Magi is 140. It's $40,000 over the threshold. Remember, we said for every 1,000, you lose $200 of deduction. So she's 40 over. 40 times $200 is an $800,000 phase out. I know that's tricky. So her maximum deduction would be the $10,000 of mortgage interest paid, or car loan interest paid. Remember, she was at 10.8, but she only gets credit for 10 minus the phase out of $2,000. So if she's in a 32% marginal tax rate, she saves $640. However, Marcus, if he's in a 22% marginal tax rate, he actually saves $770. So Marcus saves more money than Olivia, but pays a third less loan interest because of his income. Isn't that interesting? No,
and I do have to go back. I made the Ferrari reference since they're made in Italy. Does not qualify. It would not qualify for this at all. And I did just look this up, and I believe it's on Money Geek. I don't want to quote moneygeek.com. I don't want to quote it 100% because I don't know where my quick Google search is actually pulling this from. But just so everybody knows, if you haven't been in the new auto market here in a while, and this is just in general, not for U.S. manufacturer, but they're about 50,000. Comes at 49,000 and some change is the average new vehicle price. So, even at a low interest rate, that's significant savings
That's
if
very
somebody
significant.
qualifies and checks all those boxes, right?
You
So,
nailed it. So here's the
I
thing:
like it.
cash flow versus tax flow. Not everyone's situation is unique. What we hear, what we see is saying $10,000 of mortgage of I keep saying mortgage interest because I'm just so used to that, right? Automobile interest. Yes, that's the maximum, but be cognizant of filing status, modified adjusted gross income, and how much you paid, and then that calculates your tax savings.
I love it. I love it. And this was a good one again that we dove into. I know there's a lot of interest on some of the reels that we've put out there on YouTube. So everybody check those out. There's a lot of them, 600 plus videos now, just bragging on
Just
ourselves.
saying.
And I'm hardly in any of them. So it's good. It's mostly this handsome gentleman that's in it. And to kind of give you a little bit of a preview too, before we let you go, I'm looking on our list of our roster of other topics we're going to talk about, Chris, and in no order really, because our schedule on these changes, but looking, over the next month and a half, we're getting some pretty good stuff, man. So we're looking back, and not looking back technically, at the IRS data book that they put out every year. We're going to dive deep into some numbers, some fun little facts that they usually put out. We're getting into material participation, what that means with somebody good for the real estate investors out there. We're also going to get into the one fun one I know that I can raise Chris's blood pressure on somehow or another. I will find that way again. We're going to talk about LLCs. But we're going to talk about
Sounds good, John.
forming them.
I look
It's gonna be
forward to it, and I want to thank everyone for joining us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, everybody check out defeatingtaxes.com. That's a private Facebook group. Chris had mentioned there a couple of times, and also the YouTube channel. Check that out. Subscribe. Don't be lazy. And we'll see everybody back here again next week on the Teaching Tax Flow podcast. Same place, different time, different day of the week, different date. Same day of the week, different date. Completely different topic here on the show. Tried to do it there, and I messed it up as bad as Chris saying assembly, assemble, and all that stuff. You get jumbled. Have a good one.
The content provided is for educational purposes only. We encourage you to seek personalized investment advice from your financial professional. For all tax and legal advice, please consult your CPA or attorney. Investment advisory services are offered through Cabin Advisors, a registered investment advisor. Securities are offered through Cabin Securities, a registered broker-dealer. The content of this podcast does not constitute an offer of securities. Offerings can only be made through an offering memorandum, and you should carefully examine the risk factors and other information contained in the memorandum.